I'll never forget Rebecca says to me, as soon as we get home, it's like, "Oh, Mummy, can I go for a bike ride?" And I was like, "What?" and the me from before was like, "No, you're tired, I'm tired." Like, no, you but that didn't come out. I was able to remember the things that we'd learned and say, "Yes, Rebecca, of course you can go for a bike ride." Now, I'm not saying that she went off out. She literally was 5 minutes down the lane, but that was the beginning of her recovery.
So many parents write to me saying how devastating it is to watch their child slip into fatigue and pain and other chronic symptoms with no clear answers, no treatments, and no roadmap back to health. It's one thing to face these conditions as an adult, but as a parent, the helplessness can feel unbearable. I'm Raylan Nagel, and this channel is where we explore what actually helps people recover from ME/CFS, long COVID, and chronic symptoms through lived experience and through the growing science of recovery. And today I am thrilled to welcome Dr. Anna Chellamuthu. Dr. Chellamuthu has been a doctor, GP in the UK for over 20 years, and her perspective on recovery is both professional and deeply personal. Her daughter, Rebecca, fell severely unwell with ME/CFS at just 7 years old and was unable to attend school and often bedbound. And after more than 2 years of this, of confusion, isolation, and despair, Dr. Chillamuthu discovered a recovery program that she decided that she would give a try. And what followed was nothing short of extraordinary. Rebecca not only saw immediate improvements, she was fully recovered and back to school in just 8 weeks. That experience inspired Dr. Chelamathu to train as a recovery practitioner herself, and today she works with children, teenagers, and adults to support their own recovery as well. So, in this conversation right now, Dr. Chelamathu shares the harrowing reality of parenting a sick child when medicine has no answers, the turning point when she first saw stories of recovery and how hope mixed with practical tools shifted everything for them. We discuss what recovery looked like day by day for her daughter Rebecca, the unique role parents play in supporting children through this, and why she believes that young people can actually have some advantages in this work. She also speaks candidly as a medical doctor about why nervous system approaches aren't woo woo, but are grounded in science. So, if you've ever wondered how recovery is possible for children or what parents can do when they feel powerless, this interview will give you both validation and direction. So, let's dive in. Dr. Chelamathu, so wonderful to have you here today. Thank you for being with us.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me, Raylan. Yeah.
So, I know you have both a professional and a personal journey that has brought you to where you are today, sitting in front of us. So, perhaps we'll start with your professional journey. So, if you could tell us a bit about your work, and then after that, we'll hear a bit more about your personal journey that you've gone through this, that's brought you here.
Yeah, thank you, Raylan. So, yeah, I qualified as a medical doctor in the UK 2001. I was thinking about how many years ago was that. I was like, oh my goodness, that's a long time. And jumped straight into training as a family doctor, I think you call it, or a general practitioner here, and worked as a kind of a normal general practitioner in the UK for many, many years. And at that time, I was just wasn't interested at all in any kind of anything that was thought of as alternative or anything that wasn't kind of on the NHS. Essentially, I was just like, no, it's all good. I can do
Yep.
do. And also my husband is also a medical doctor as well, which is kind of relevant. And then our daughter Rebecca, then age 7, she got sick and ended up with a diagnosis of ME/CFS, aged just 7.5, and that was kind of what changed everything in terms of me looking at other things that might help because yeah, we knew that the medical profession had so little to offer. So yeah, and so yeah,
Yeah,
carry
I'm just sorry to jump in. I'm
yeah.
trying to. I can't even begin to imagine what it's like seeing your 7-year-old little girl become so unwell and then get a diagnosis of ME/CFS. From your professional work as a doctor, were you quite familiar with this diagnosis, or were you aware of it at this time?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I knew about it was kind of bad. So I'd had a couple of patients
Yeah.
with it who I knew had been ill for decades, and they're really tricky patients to manage as a GP if you don't know much about it, because I had nothing to give them, really. And so that was my picture in my mind, was these kind of older people who had ME, and I was like, well, we were like, well, is this going to happen to our daughter? So yeah, and that kind of process of kind of reaching the diagnosis is really, it's just it's devastating. So Rebecca was, I can go back a little bit. So she was just a normal, happy, healthy 7-year-old,
Yeah.
so, and 7-year-olds get sick sometimes, like they get a cold or they get a virus or a sore throat, and she did that. I would go to school and they pick up the bugs, and I will always remember that she used to get she'd get a cold or a sore throat or something. And then when she was better, a couple of days later, she would like wake up in the morning and bounce downstairs and say, "Oh, I'm better today, mummy." And I remember this time that she got sick when she was about 7, 7.5. And I was just like, okay, it's been a week, and she's still not come back downstairs saying she's better. And then that
Yeah.
week turned into 2 weeks, turned into 3 weeks. And then it was like, okay, we need to take her to the doctor. There's nothing we can find that's wrong with her. Okay, 3 weeks turns into 6 weeks, and then
Oh,
it's the bloods and the what is going on. A really frightening time, as well as a parent for anybody, but
yeah.
also as a medic. Being a medical parent is quite tricky, because you kind of got the kind of worst case scenario diagnosis in your head. She's got cancer.
Yeah.
Something's really wrong with this child. She's really sick.
Yeah.
Um, and then as the months went by, and the investigations all came back normal, in including a brain scan, chest X-rays, because she had chronic headaches. Um, yeah, that everything comes back with there's nothing wrong, but yet you're so, well, she's still sick. So then ended up with a diagnosis of ME, chronic fatigue. And to be honest, I think they could have told us anything else and it would have been easier, with obviously within reason, but it was yeah, absolutely devastating, because she was so sick, and also that we knew that they weren't giving us any answers. It's like, okay, she's got this, yeah, what do we do next?
So is that what made it one of the worst diagnoses for you? Is that
Yeah,
um,
so yeah,
unknown?
yeah, or like, can you give it, if you have a diagnosis where there's treatment. If she was
Yeah.
diabetic, she'd have some insulin. If it was a problem with her thyroid, give her some thyroid medicine. If it was a chronic infection, you give her a long course of antibiotics. Um, we kind of doctors who like to prescribe stuff to get people better,
Yeah.
and there was no, yeah, it was really hard, because we could see, well, what do we do now?
Yeah.
And also because we weren't given any hope that anything would get better. It's just like, hey, well, you need to learn to manage this and manage it, as best you can. So that's where we were at for a long time, actually, which was really hard. It was really confusing. It was really lonely, because people don't understand CFSME very well. Um,
Mhm.
I didn't know very many other young kids with it either. Um, Thankfully, I had a kind of, my parents were supportive, so I was able to carry on working part time. Um, to keep me sane. So if anyone has had a sick child, you just, how that impacts your whole family. It's not just that you've got a sick child, but how can this family, carry on with life. Um, so yeah, that's kind of where we were at. But we didn't give up looking for answers. So probably about a year in, um, we started looking elsewhere, looking at things that I would never have thought about looking at before. So we tried cranial osteopathy, which I probably vaguely heard of, but had no idea. That didn't work. Considered acupuncture, but Rebecca was terrified of needles, so that wasn't really a starter. But started looking at things that I had always thought, to be honest, they won't work. They don't
Mhm.
work. Was my belief. And also, as a Christian, I was also a little bit wary of. I didn't want to do anything that wasn't just mainstream, kind of traditional stuff. But we were really so desperate for answers and hope. And then it was, well, 2.5 years later, that a friend suggested something called the lightning process, which I know you've talked about before. And I was like, oh, one more thing that won't work. Really, I didn't have the
Yeah.
energy to look at anything else, but started to look at it and started to to see people who'd recovered. And to be honest, it was the first time I'd seen recovery stories. I guess you probably weren't around 8 years ago. Maybe you were, but I hadn't found you. And
I was
um,
still sick. So yeah, I was here, but I didn't have anything
yeah,
helpful to say.
recovery. And so it was the first time that I saw people stories of people who'd recovered from CFSME, and then it was like, oh my goodness, there was hope, which was so powerful, and hope not just that recovery could happen, because I think we probably knew that was something that maybe one day she'll get better, but actually there's something that I could do, that we could do to influence that happening. Not just you have to sit
Yeah.
back and wait and yeah, keep pacing really well, and you might be able to slowly improve things over time. But here were people saying, well, I know I did this thing, and I'm better. So yes, so that's what we did.
I I was telling you before we started recording that I have a lot of parents reaching out with children that are facing this, and it's so heartbreaking. But I haven't had the opportunity to speak to many parents here, so I really appreciate you being here. And I'm wondering, first, like, what did Rebecca's life look like for those couple of years? What was that like for her?
So it was variable. So at her worst, she would be either in bed or on the sofa, pretty much 24 hours a day. Spent a lot of time just watching My Little Pony on the iPad, to be honest. And um, her world became very small. Um, there would be times when there would be like maybe a friend's birthday party, that she would maybe go for half an hour or something like that. But it would be that parent going, I don't want you to go, because if you go, then I know that you'll be even worse. So she was going through a bit of a, okay, maybe a little bit more active for a few weeks sometimes, and then it would be like, she's a kid, so yes, she wants to go and run around the garden and play with the dogs, but I'm just
Yeah.
like, yeah, I couldn't stop her as much as I knew, because we at that point we were in the chronic fatigue clinic, so we knew about pacing, and so they would say, well, she can't go and run around the garden, because if she goes and run around the garden, she hasn't got that much energy, so she will then crash. And then sure enough, that's what happened, which is really, it's really, really hard as a parent to say, no, you can't go and run around the garden, but equally then to know that you've let her do that, and because you let her do that, she's back in bed for 3 weeks. um, it was also hard for our family and people to understand, because they'd see her when she was maybe running around the garden, and they'd go, well, there's nothing wrong with her.
Oh, yeah.
So hard. And just like, well, why isn't she at school? She's, and yeah, some really, really difficult, challenging conversations, which yeah, you understand well from having experience as an adult, but almost like as a parent wanting to care well for your child, it's how, yeah, navigating that was really, really tricky. So yeah, so it was quite variable. She had a couple of 2 month blocks within those 2.5 years where she was able to do much more and almost reach normal, only to crash back down again. At the time that we found out about the lightning process, she was having an hour of a home tutor 3 times a week, and that was really all she could manage. That was the only time that she was kind of sitting upright, having a home tutor, and the rest of the time she was just on the sofa.
I can't imagine because even for adults, when we get these conditions and we're told that you need to pace and you only have so much energy and, count your spoons and all these things, it's so hard. When I interview adults, and I was the
Yeah,
same, it's like superhuman self control when you have a bit of energy and you're feeling okay to not do all the things
not
that you
to
want
us,
to do. So I can't even imagine for a child. I can't imagine for her, and I can't imagine for you how challenging that was
yeah.
to just be like, I know you finally feel okay for a little bit, but you need to sit down.
I think
Oh
we
my
probably
goodness.
we didn't do pacing very well, to be honest. I
Yeah.
think we'd be like, you've got energy and you want to go out, and
Yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah.
yeah, so
I would
yeah, just really, really, really tough. Yeah,
Okay. It's such a fascinating journey that you've been on with two parents who are medical doctors. And then it sounds like you are not immune to the desperation that the rest of us face, that all of a sudden we're like, all right,
yeah.
doesn't sound credible or sounds a bit bizarre or like a little bit nuts even, but like, I'll try it.
We need an answer.
If
Yeah,
one person on the planet says that it worked for them, like, I don't want to
yeah.
be like, I don't want. So you came across the lightning process, and I think by now a lot of people have heard of it and have a general understanding of it, but I think it still can be a misunderstood program. So for those who have never heard of it, or perhaps heard it or heard conflicting information, like how would you describe it?
Yeah, so it's very much a brain, mind, body training program, um, kind of teaching people how to train their neurology in the ways, the pathways towards health, which actually for kids is quite fun. Learning to kind of switch off those pathways into fatigue, chronic pain, and switch on those pathways to energy and calmness and joy and fun. So in a nutshell, it's a training program to help people to retrain their kind of neurophysiological system to pathways towards health, like there are other brain mind body training programs, um, and and there's kind of different elements of that. So part of it is about education. It's about kind of teaching you how your body's got stuck, really got stuck with these unhelpful patterns. Talk about the what we call as the kind of the physical emergency response, or the fight or flight response that's got stuck on, essentially, which causes trouble in all sorts of systems in your body. It can cause problems in the neurological system, obviously, but also all the hormones are not working properly, digestion and sleep and healing systems. And so it's about so the part of it's education, understanding that, okay, yeah, that makes sense. And then saying, okay, well, what can we do about that? And learning how to calm down that physical emergency response, a bit like a kind of a reset for the nervous system. And kind of relearning those things that we used to be really good at, experiencing energy and calmness, and just kind of saying, actually, those pathways are still there. We just need to kind of reopen them and reactivate them again.
Dust them off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So many of us hear about the lightning process, and this can sound sometimes like you do the 3-day seminar and then you're cured, and then you just go on life happily ever after. So what did that look like for Rebecca and you when you left that seminar?
Yeah, so that is kind of definitely not not the way it is. So yeah, most people, well, certainly for Rebecca, we knew that there was a turnaround, a turning point, if you like, from going down and down and down, like she's just getting more and more sick, to being like, oh, okay, there is some hope. There's hope, and I can already saw after the 3 days that she was able to do more. So that more being, maybe walk for 5 minutes. And there was a park nearby where we were doing the seminar, and I remember after the end of the second day or morning, they're only half days, the second morning we went to feed the ducks, and just seeing sparks of joy again was just incredible to see. And then I'll always remember when we got home after the 3 days of the seminar, I was absolutely exhausted. Like, like emotionally, there's so much riding on this. I'd kind of walked with Rebecca through this training program, and I'm full of so much hope, but also that expectation. Like, come on, this is now this is going to mean something. So I got home after the 3.5 hour drive. I was exhausted, and I will never forget. Rebecca says to me as soon as we get home, it's like, oh, "Mummy, can I go for a bike ride?" And I was like what? And the me from before was like no, like I'm like you're tired, I'm tired. Like no, but that didn't come out. I was able to remember the things that we'd learned, and say yes, Rebecca. Of course, you can go for a bike ride. Now, I'm not saying that she went off out. She literally was 5 minutes down the lane, but that was the beginning of her recovery. So she needed to do the kind of what some people call kind of the steps of the process, which would be the kind of self coaching tool that she'd learned perhaps in the first few days to weeks, sometimes every half an hour. That became every 2 to 3 hours. And then when she went back to school, she was using it, even more, just to get that confidence. She had a little ticket that she could give to her teacher if she needed to go out from the class to go and do the lightning process and then come back. Um, so it took 6 to 8 weeks, I would say, for her to be back at school full time, and she was then back
Wow.
back at school full time. And I can honestly, and she's when we've never looked back. There's been no, like, it took me, honestly, it took me 2 years to believe that this was not like, when she going to crash again, when she going to crash again. but she honestly, she has not, and that was 8.5 years ago now. And she ran her first marathon a few months ago. She's off to university in a couple of weeks' time, and I honestly, I think we could still be on this chronic fatigue journey had we not found a way out for her,
Mm.
which is devastating. And I just, I long for parents of and carers of children who have got chronic fatigue to know that there is hope, and to not give up, and to keep on looking, and to find out those stories of those who have recovered, and say, well, how did they do it? And I know that's kind of part of brilliant work that you do, is like, what are those threads of gold that are running through these recovery stories? And yeah, and for Rebecca, it was, yeah, through the lightning process, but a way of retraining her neurology to know that she can reaccess energy again. So yeah.
I know, and this is the nature of these interviews, is that we have to go over everything quite quickly. And we talked about those, more than 2 years of her being, so feeling so unwell very quickly. I can't even imagine what that was like as a parent for you to keep going through life and watch your daughter go through that. And then even more so, I'm thinking about what was it like watching her after those, what I'm sure were 2+ very long years, to see her so quickly in weeks be back at
Yeah.
school.
It was absolutely incredible, and I don't think I'll ever take it for granted that the stuff, like, I just remember just like watching her then after that, jumping on a trampoline, or just going for longer bike rides, and being back at school, and being able to watch that with wonder and joy, whereas before she was ill, you kind of just take it for granted, don't you, that kids can do that. um and it felt miraculous, and yeah, it really did, and felt too good to be true for a while, but then I saw that it was true, that she was well, and that continued and continued. And then after a couple of years of like, okay, yeah, she's really well, and I was like, this is too good not to be able to help other people in this way. And that's when I trained to become a lightning process practitioner myself.
Which is
Uh,
also fascinating to me that a medical doctor is now also a lightning process practitioner. So much to unpack here. This is so incredible. Just thinking about my own recovery. My recovery happened over a span of about a year and a half. And at that point, I'd been unwell for over 8 years. So a year and a half felt like the speed of
yeah, that
lightning.
is
Like that
quite
was
yeah.
but I didn't understand. I understand now that I recovered through essentially brain retraining and nervous system regulation, but I didn't know the science. I didn't have the tools, so it was a slow, clunky process for me. So I can't begin to imagine what it was like to see that rapid of progress in Rebecca. And what has it been like for Rebecca since her recovery? Has there been long term, negative impacts, or how did she come through this?
No, yeah, I mean, I think kids do kind of bounce back from things, don't they? I think maybe easier
Yeah.
than adults do. So she'd probably have used the learning process tool for about 3 months. So after being back at school full time, still using it a bit. But after 3 months, she like wants nothing to do with it. It's just like almost like when she was stressed about her exams, or kind of going through school and final exams. It's like, oh, you've got, the lightning process is really handy. To way to. It's like, it's almost like that was part of her being ill, and now she's well. Absolutely no long term consequences at all. Yeah, and just wonderful. She loves running, so yes, it's run a marathon, and she's going off to university to study to become a vet. So studying veterinary medicine, which she's wanted
Wha-
to do since she was tiny. So it's just such a joy. So yeah, I don't think there have been any long term implications for her, and for us, I think it's just a deep gratitude that to have a well, healthy daughter, that we discovered a way out for her, and yeah, and what a joy that I've got to be able to help others. Kind of more than anything, I wish that it wasn't her that had to be sick for me to discover that there was this kind of world of kind of mind body medicine, and a way for people to recover. I wish it hadn't been her, that maybe it'd
Yeah.
been me, and I could have had my recovery story, and I could still have trained to be a practitioner. But hey, that's what it is. But if that means that then I get to be a voice for parents, and I get to help, people I love helping the most are younger people, teenagers, who have been housebound for 4 years and haven't been to school, and seeing them which is such a privilege of working in this field. It's like seeing them come back to life essentially,
Yeah.
and yeah, I love it. So yeah,
I'm curious, most of us as adults that go through this ourselves tend to want to understand why it happened in the first place. And we start trying to unpack what could have led up to
yeah,
that big health crash and all of these symptoms. So, have you had any? Guys, it's really hard to imagine how a 7-year-old
yeah.
could end up with this condition. Do you have any understanding
We
or
don't really,
insights?
yeah, I don't really know. And I think as I've learned more about the the other training programs that are out there, the kind of recovery programs that are there, and that how much a lot of them are focused on, well, let's look at what was
Yeah.
going on there. And a lot of people are, very driven, and they work really, really hard. And the last thing on earth they thought would happen would that they would get long COVID or chronic fatigue. And I was thinking, well, what, that wasn't complicated. Rebecca's recovery didn't involve us needing to know what it was.
Hmm.
It didn't involve us needing to know why she got sick. Um, so it was a virus. It was whatever it was. It wasn't glandular fever. They looked hard for that, but it was a glandular fever or Epstein-Barr type viral illness that got her system stuck. And she, at the time, wasn't a stressed, anxious child. Sure, she had a bit of school anxiety after being off for so long, having to go, went back in. But we honestly don't know. And maybe there wasn't. Maybe it was the physical stressor, rather than the complex,
Hmm.
multifaceted layers that you often see with adults with these conditions. So that I think that's quite freeing to realize, because and that the way to recovery doesn't always have to be about unpicking whatever mess that there was psychologically, but actually let's just focus on recovery. And then maybe if there's some stuff there that still needs working on, then we can focus on that when we've got energy and to do so. Whereas if you're struggling with brain fog and fatigue, it's like really hard to try then and think about all of
Oh,
those layers of
absolutely.
what's going on. So I think,
Absolutely.
yeah, and with kids, I think to know that it's okay if you don't know. So it wasn't like the chronic fatigue service that Rebecca was part of wasn't holistic. They were very holistic. They were very keen that we, as a family, saw psychologists, and that Rebecca was linked to. I was like, well, yeah, we were willing to do anything. Weren't against that, but I was like, that wasn't with hope for recovery. That was like, yeah, it was more like let's see what we can do to support this family with a really sick child, and maybe we'll uncover something that will be able to work on psychologically. But yeah, I don't think that's always necessary, which I
Yeah.
think is good.
Yeah, a couple of really important things in there. I think, one being that when you're right in the thick of it, it's not the time to try and unpack all your childhood trauma.
Yeah,
That's not a realistic ask of
it's just not
anybody. And it's,
realistic. I'm not saying it wouldn't necessarily be helpful, but just like,
yeah.
yeah, how are you going to do that?
And I'm not even sure that it is helpful in that moment because really we're working to turn symptoms off and work with our nervous system. So it is about those messages of safety and knowing that you're and trusting that your body isn't broken. And I think it's wonderful just when I'm from where I'm sitting here and you speak, I really appreciate what you're sharing because I know it can be confusing because we've learned a lot about how the brain and the nervous system work, but there's still a
Mm,
lot that we don't know. And when you read different books, scientifically backed books, maybe some not, but people come at it from different places. And some people are saying, oh, it's, so much about unpacking, your emotions and your past trauma. And other people are saying, no, this is just an overactive nervous system response and it's a mistake communication and we just need to rewire that. And, other people are, it's just there's people come at it from different directions. And I think they're all right in their own
yeah,
way. And it's important for people to realize that, yeah, it probably won't all apply to you. And
yeah,
just know that there are different paths, even if you have determined that it's neuroplasticity and nervous system regulation that's going to get you out of this, what that looks like for you. You're still going to you tailor it for yourself and trust your gut on what feels,
absolutely.
yeah, is the right
Yeah.
path.
And
Okay,
especially
so
for young kids,
oh,
that's yeah,
yes, absolutely, yeah. How do you even begin to start to unpack all of that with children and get to the root if there is one? And yeah, we know it's a threat response, so it could be simply the physical threat, the the illness that she faced, and then the body just got stuck.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you're trained as a lightning process practitioner. Are you also still working as a medical doctor, or what does your work look like now?
Yeah, so the two are completely separate. So I work part-time as a lightning process practitioner and part-time as a medical doctor. Currently working in the UK, we have kind of GPs with special interests in things,
Mm.
and I work in oncology, so I look after cancer outpatients. Um, Completely not in the mind body world at all. So I'm, yes, very very traditional, looking after patients in the traditional way, and then part of my week I'm helping people with ME/CFS, long COVID, recover their health back with the lightning process. So yeah, completely separate worlds. But I enjoy that. Enjoy that variety, and to be able to do that.
Are any of your medical colleagues aware of the path to recovery that your daughter had and the work that you do? And if so, what is their, I guess, reaction to that?
Yeah, some of them know about it, some of them don't. I guess because it was such a long time ago, it doesn't really come up in conversation with.
Yeah.
And I've only worked where I work at the moment for 3 years, 3 years or so. Um, but when it was good, when I was going through it, I was working as a GP in a normal family doctor practice. They were, yeah, fascinated and generally just, yeah, really pleased for us that she found her way through. And I haven't met a single medical doctor who's not, is supportive, and it kind of
Mhm.
encourages this approach. I mean, I know that's partly the world that I'm in, and the conversations that I have, and I know that there are people who don't like it at all. But I think genuinely, if someone sees people recover, that's
Yeah.
powerful. People's individual stories are powerful, and so, and doctors love to hear of people getting better. We don't often work in places where we see that happen a lot. So
Yeah, especially in these complex chronic conditions, I can imagine it can be quite stressful as a doctor to have patients come in and not have the tools or not be able to help them to recover. So, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, that
yeah.
makes a lot of sense. So, I know that you work with children now. You said you mentioned teenagers and youth as your work as a lightning process practitioner. I'm wondering, how much work is with the child? What is the role of the parent? Like, what does that look like?
It's really variable, kind of depending on the age of the child. So always encourage the parent to come with the child, um, but the child has to want to be well, which sounds silly, doesn't it? But it can't just be, especially with the teenagers, it can't just be that this mum is desperate for this 14-year-old
Mhm.
to get better. I need to work with that 14-year-old to help them to want to get better. So sometimes I'll chat to the parent who's like, I really, really want, and it's just like, well, what do they think about it? It's like, oh, no, they're not interested at all. And I can't, that that is not going to work. So it's mainly with that child or young person that I'm working with, and I will want to make sure that I have a conversation with them. With or without their parent. If they're a teenager, sometimes they want to chat without their parent, and then the kind of the training, the 3-day training program itself. They're both learning the skills, but it's the child who needs to be able to put them into practice, and just having a parent be able to support them in that, to realize and that they're using their bodies in a different way, their minds in a different way, and how to support them in that is really vital. And actually, I think the kids have got a massive advantage from that, because the adults will have to be able to do that without someone being their, cheerleader and positive encourager along the way. That can be really tough. But for a kid to be having a parent say to them, you need to use that tool you've got, and again and again, and someone just really being their encourager is really vital. Um, but it is tailored towards the child, the young person, and the parent is kind of there as an observer and supporter for that child. And I think the parents then behaviour towards that child naturally changes. So I don't necessarily, talk. Well, we do talk about how, but it's more coming from the child. How can your mom help you, to focus on what you do want to see, for example, rather than what you don't want. Maybe teaching parents, you don't need to ask them how they're feeling every 10 minutes. They need to be focusing on, actually, oh, I'm feeling okay right now. And because so often we can be as parents, kind of checking in a lot, and like, hey, how are you feeling? Are you all right? What can I do to support you? And actually recognizing that is not necessarily helpful in terms of recovery. So does that answer your question? That kind of it, yeah, tailored towards the child, and the
Yes.
parents kind of there as
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like the bulk of the onus is on the child. They have to use the tools. They have to
yeah,
have the mindset. They have to want to do this.
yeah,
But the parents have a role as well in supporting them and reminding them and encouraging them and helping to keep them on track because they're
yeah,
children. And, even adults struggle to stay on track. So
absolutely.
understandably, children would as well.
For kids, is really important. A great starting point is to help them to find things that they really want to do when they're well. So depending on how long they've been sick, it's like actually and finding things that they really would want to do. Not I'm going to get back into education, which is often kind of well, the parent is worried that they've lost so much education. How are we going to get? But actually,
Yeah.
for a kid, so for Rebecca, it was like we had a list of things that so when we first made contact with the lightning process practitioner, it was like, well, get Rebecca to write a list of things that she wants to do when she's well. So we had things like, paint the tree house, go for a bike ride, go for a sleepover at my friend's house. Getting them to start to think about, well, okay, what would life look like when I'm well, without that being education.
Right.
These are the things that I can't do now, but I really, really want to, because having that want to be well is so
No.
important, such an important motivator for them to be able to put this into practice.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and it's almost like telling an adult, like, we need to get you well so you can start cleaning the house again.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
know?
Yeah. Toy show so you
Not
can
so
go back to
motivated.
the job you like. Yeah, so, yeah.
So I feel like it's safe to assume that hope played a big role in your journey when in those years when you didn't have answers. So I just would love to hear, your any insights or how hope played into things, how you kept hope alive, how you kept going. I know there had to be some really hard, dark, desperate places that people inevitably go through on these journeys. So, what would you say to parents who have children that are going through this, that are feeling that same way? What got you
Yeah.
through it?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's I think have hope that other people get well. So that was helpful. But that took years to arrive at that, until we found people that got
Mm,
well. So for parents who have found your child, to actually recognize, look at all these hundreds of thousands of people who have recovered from these chronic health conditions, and whether they're young people, children, or older adults, that actually that's okay. That doesn't matter. That there is hope. um, have good friends who understand. So that was really helpful, having friends around us who maybe we didn't understand completely, but were able to be there for us, and in the confusion and you just don't know. And having our faith in God as well, that actually ultimately he had a good plan. But that's really hard as well, when you're just confused and stuck, and like we can't see what's going on. um but I think the hope, that knowing that recovery is possible. I think that's really key, because that's what allows you to see, well, if they can do it, why not my child? And not to give up. If the first thing that you try doesn't necessarily isn't helpful, there, pick up and try again. And know that sometimes kids, especially teenagers, thinking about the teenagers I've worked with, they might take a little while to get ready for that change, and to just kind of stick with it. um, which can be really, really hard. And so sometimes you need to take a step back and
mm.
almost let them do their thing. Um, but just maybe keep planting those seeds of that you believe in them, that you can see that there's good things in their future, and just keep planting the seeds. Like, look at that person. They had this struggle and they overcame it, and they've achieved this. So yeah, hope is really important. Hope is a really powerful thing, but it can feel really scary to have hope for recovery. It sometimes feels easier to have it to accept things as they are. Is it
Yeah.
actually, because if you just accept that we've got a sick child, you can learn to build your life around that. You can learn to limit your expectations. You can learn to live within those boundaries. Whereas to have hope, you risk disappointment.
Yeah.
Um, so sometimes it's almost letting other people hold that hope for you. Um, and I know that whether that's a child or an adult going through this journey, hope can feel it's tricky, isn't it? That actually it's sometimes easier not to hope. But I yeah would encourage anyone listening to have hope because it's yeah recovery is so possible for a lot of these conditions, um, and yeah you'll find your own way through it. And patience is required sometimes.
Yeah, and some self-compassion
Yeah,
along the way, and
absolutely.
patience with yourself, and forgiveness, and kindness, and lowering of expectations, and, yeah,
Yeah,
all of that good stuff.
oh,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
sometimes, like, it can get to a place, I saw it with my mother, she had this as well, where it seemed like hope became the most painful symptom, when you've had some people have had decades of trying things and getting excited about maybe this is it, and then, no, maybe this is it. No. So yeah, I think it's a self-protection and it's understandable.
yeah,
But
absolutely. And then
I
the
love that
temptation
we're in the
up. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, I love that we're in the place now, though, that we have so many recovery stories. And for people watching, I have a wait list a mile long. People are reaching out to me every day. So, what you're seeing here is just a very small sample of what's actually happening in the world. I would have to do this all day,
yeah.
every day, and I still probably wouldn't keep up. So, yeah, there is tons of reason to have
It's
hope.
exciting. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
exciting.
Oh, it really is. It really is. Oh my goodness. Yeah. So, for people who are watching, if they wanted to connect with you, how would they do that? What do you have available? Is it just for youth? Do you work with adults? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I currently only work with people who are in the UK, and I work on Zoom. I do lightning process seminars over Zoom or in person in Cornwall, in the UK, which is
Okay.
UK standards is a long way for a lot of people to travel. And I work with teenagers and children and adults. But I'd also encourage you to to reach out to there's other lightning process practitioners as well. And find your own path. The lightning process is not the only way to recover from these illnesses. So have a look and see what's out there. So my website, I think you've got the link to that. Um, dranna.co.uk. You can have a look at that, which has got kind of my story, some of the people that I've worked with stories, and yeah, I'd be happy to have a chat.
This is absolutely incredible. And of course, all this will be in the video description. So, people watching, if you take a moment, please, I encourage you to check out what's there. Great information, great resources. And if you're in the UK and looking for support, you can connect with Anna as well. And I'm going to link here as well just a playlist to all of the recovery stories. I think there's, I don't know, 250 some there and counting. You don't have to watch them all. Just scan through and find some that resonate for you, bookmark them for those more challenging days. And as Dr. Anna said, yeah, borrow that hope on the days when you might not be feeling it. Thank you so much for being here. Absolutely incredible hearing the story of your daughter and the work that you're now doing. This is so encouraging. So grateful for you being here. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. No, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me. Yeah.
And so
Brilliant.
exciting to see where Rebecca is now, all that she's doing. Just so much hope.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking when anyone gets these conditions, but children above all. So really incredible to see where she is now. Amazing. And thank you to everyone who's watching. And I hope you'll check out one of these next recovery interviews.